tell me what volume is. If I said, what is the volume of this mug? What am I asking you? Yeah, Soleil. The space it occupies, the space inside, right? How much coffee could fit in this mug or whatever beverage your choice is. So this is the space a figure occupies. Volume is different than area in that there are 3 dimensions that we're working with now, right? Length and width and height. So with volume, you don't label it inches squared like you do area. You label it inches cubed or feet cubed because you're going inches times inches times inches, right? That's inches cubed. There is this guy, Cavalieri, who came up with this principle, this idea, that says if 2 space figures, if 2 3-dimensional figures have the same height and the same cross-sectional area. What is a cross-section? You learned it in 11.1. A plane that intersects a solid, right? The area that is intersection of a plane and a solid. So like this is a cross-section, this is a cross-section, this is a cross-section for these 3 figures. If they have the same area and the figures themselves have the same height, then they will have the same volume. Okay, in other words, those 3 figures, even though they look totally different, will hold the same amount of liquid inside of them, for instance. Okay, we're not going to go into a whole lot more detail with that, but that will be true for any figures. It comes into play a little bit in the homework when they ask you some just prodding questions. We're going to start today with volume of a prism. So if you think back to I should just let you hold on to these for a minute. This sheet, right? Again, you can open this in Canvas. It's at the top of the Chapter 11 module. But if you're looking at this formula sheet, we did lateral area, surface area. Now we're going to move down to this bottom row and talk volume. So volume of a prism and cylinder is where we're going to live right now. And that formula for volume, have you learned a volume formula before? And do you remember what it was? It probably wasn't this. My guess is... What? Yeah, I feel like typically it's length times width times height, right? It's the 3 dimensions. You multiply them all together. When dealing with any prism, that doesn't work because sometimes your prism has a different shaped base, right? So the general rule of thumb here is you take the area of the base, right? So B is always area of the base, which is why length times width works here because that's the area of a rectangle. And then you multiply it by the height of the figure. Okay, and that's what we've been talking about all along with B and H. B is always the area of the base. H is always the height of the figure, the distance between the bases, if you will. So keep that in mind. Anytime you see a prism, that's the formula that you're going to use, base times height. So if they give you, in example 1 here, a rectangular prism, they're saying find the area of the rectangle and then multiply by the height of the figure. So if you want to think of a rectangular prism as L times W times H, because that's how you learned it, it's fine. You just can't do that if it's a triangular prism or if it's a pentagonal prism, right? So I'm going to keep with the BH just for consistency's sake. When it's a rectangular prism like this, you get to pick the base because any side can be the base in a rectangular prism. What do you want your base to be? Top, bottom, left, right, front, back. What do you want? The bottom. I like the bottom. I feel like most people pick the bottom and the top as your bases. So we're going to treat those as our bases. So if I want capital B, which is the area of the base, what am I multiplying? 12 times 5, right? So that's going to be 60. So the area of my base is 60. What is h? The 6, the height of the prism, the distance between the bases. So you're going to say the volume of this rectangular prism is 360. How do you label it? Cubed. Millimeters cubed. Okay. Questions on that? All right, look at example 2 here. It says find the volume of the triangular prism. Now that name should tell you something. What is the triangular prism telling you? Why is it called a triangular prism and not a rectangular prism? Because what? Those are your bases, okay? This question, drawn like this, always gets done wrong because people want to treat the base as the bottom, as this. So they find the area of that, and then they treat the 3 as the height, and they try to tell me that that's the volume, and that doesn't work, okay? Pay attention to what it is. This is a triangular prism. So your base is a triangle. That means when I say volume equals the area of the base times the height, B is going to be using what formula right now? 1/2 base times height. Because it's a triangle, we have to go 1/2 times the base times the height of that triangle. What do you know about this triangle? It's a right angle. Because it's 3, 4, 5, that's a Pythagorean triple, right? So then we know this is a right angle, even though they didn't put it in for us. It has to be a right angle. So what are your base and height, your lowercase b and h of the triangle? Yeah, 4 and 3 will be your B and your H. Okay, so we're going to say capital B, the area of the base of our figure is 1/2 times 4 times 3. Okay, that means for the volume, if I simplify this, our capital B is 6. So that's going to go here. So this is where it can get a little bit tricky, right? Because there's a capital B and there's a lowercase b, and it's very important that you put them in the right place. What is this H? Because this H is different than this H, right? That second H, let me change colors here. The red H is the height of the base. The blue H is the height of what? The height of the figure, right? The distance between our bases. So what is that blue H? That's the 11, okay? So then the volume of this figure is 66, what? Centimeters cubed. Don't cube the 66, right? Cube the units, not the number. Good on that? Okay. I feel like this one is a little more difficult still. What is this figure? What's it called? It's a triangular prism. They told you that, right, in the problem. This is a triangular prism. So your base is what shape? A triangle. Okay. In order to find, so this is a base, right? We want the volume in a prism is B times H. So we need B, which is the area of the base. Okay, so your base being a triangle. What is the area formula? 1/2 times the base, lowercase b, times the height. What dimensions do you know of this triangle? 8, 8, 8. We know all the way around. This is 8, so that means this is 8. We know this is 8. We know this is 8. Okay, so you have what type of triangle here? Equilateral. Tell me some things you know about an equilateral triangle. Equiangular, yes. So if this is equilateral, it's also equiangular. What does that mean for all my angles? 60, right? It's 180 degrees and they're all equal, so divide by 3. So every angle is 60. Do you like that number? Because we've used it a lot. Where's the height in this triangle? Right down the middle, right? This would be the height. This is the H that we're looking for. Do you see it now? Do you see the 30, 60, 90 that we just made? So take a look at this. You have a 30, 60, 90 triangle. This piece right here is how long? 4. This piece over here is 8. So what's H? 4 rad 3. Remember that? L rad 3 and 2L, right? So this is going to be 4 rad 3. We've done a lot of work and we haven't found a thing yet, have we? We need the area of the base, capital B, times H. How do I find that capital B? It's up here, right? So my area of my base is going to be 1/2. What's the lowercase b?
8.
It's this 8, right? It's the base. It's this piece. This is my b. Okay, so 1/2 times 8. What is H? That's the 4 rad 3. That's the H for my base. So 4 rad 3. How are we doing so far? Good. So if I plug this in, 1/2 times 8 times 4, I get 16 rad 3. Okay, so the area of that triangle is 16 rad 3 square inches. We don't want the area of the triangle. We want the volume of the prism. So we take that 16 rad 3 and we drop it in for B. And we multiply it by what? The height of the figure, which is the distance between your two bases, right? So this is the H right here. You multiply that by 10, and you get a volume of 160 rad 3 cubic inches. Okay, so if they said leave it in simplest radical form, that's what you would do. If they said round it, then we would say that's approximately 277.1 cubic inches. Just pay attention to what they ask you. Sometimes they're going to say to the nearest tenth. Sometimes they're going to say leave it in simplest radical form. See what they want. Any questions on that? There's a lot going on there, huh? Okay, that is the first half of the lesson, the prisms. Then we're going to move into cylinders. And cylinders is the same formula, which is beautiful. You'll see that on that little sheet of paper. Volume of a cylinder is still going to be the area of the base times the height. Does anyone think they could write that for me in a different form? What is B when you're dealing with a cylinder? Radius squared times pi. Pi r squared. Okay, so if I want to substitute this for B, the volume of a cylinder is pi r squared times h. Okay, so if you want to just memorize it as that, great. I'm going to give you that one. Volume equals BH. I also give you the fact that the area of a circle, you saw it on here, right? Area of a circle is pi r squared. So you have all the pieces. It's just knowing what replaces what in the setup. Okay, So radius is still a radius, right? Halfway across. Height is still the distance between your two bases, so the distance between the circles. Let's see if you can find the volume of that cylinder knowing that information. So talk to your neighbors, see if you can find the volume of this cylinder. Height, radius, what do you know? Where do you... Oh, I don't even know it because I changed my questions. What'd you get? What? 24 pi feet cubed. Did anyone else get that? I honestly haven't worked it out yet. Yes? Does that sound right? Let's see. Okay, so your B, and notice it says leave it in terms of pi, so don't plug pi in, right? Your B is the area of your base, which is pi r squared. So that's going to be pi times 2 squared, or 4 pi. Okay, so B is 4 pi. H is the height, which is going to be this guy here, so 6. And when you plug that in, you get 24 pi feet cubed. Good work. What's different about this one? It gives you diameter instead of radius, okay? And that's probably the thing that gets done wrong the most on these, I would say, is people just not paying attention to the little details, right? A radius is the shorter one, a diameter is the longer one. You need a radius to find volume. So what would your radius be on this problem? Radius is 7. So we're saying volume equals the area of the base times the height. So volume is pi times 7 squared, right? Pi r squared times the height, which is 10. So if you plug that in, 7 squared is 49 times 10 is 490. Then attach your pi, centimeters, and cube it. Please don't cube pi. Did you hear that? You do not put anything up here on pi ever with what we do, okay? You cube your units, which are the centimeters, don't cube the pi. It's another very common mistake that I see on these. Okay, last one, and then you'll have some time to see if you can get it done. Take a look at this figure and tell me what you see.
A half cylinder.
A half cylinder and
A rectangle.
a what?
Rectangular.
And a rectangular prism. Okay, now they're asking for the volume of it. Remember when they asked for like the surface area of something like this? We had to really be careful because you don't want certain pieces of it. That's not the case with volume because we're trying to fill it. So you do want the volume of the prism and you do want the volume of the half cylinder, okay? So you don't change the formula, you don't take away a base, none of that stuff. You're still finding volume. Here's how I would lay this out. I would say volume of half a cylinder. Okay. What's the formula you're going to use for that? What's the volume of a cylinder formula? Base times height. We need to do what to that? Cut it in half. So you're going to plug in 1/2 times the base times the height, not the area of a triangle, not lowercase b, right? Uppercase B, the capital B. But we want to cut the cylinder in half. We want the whole volume of the prism, and that's just going to be BH. You know what I'm going to do here? I like to see the other stuff. I'm going to draw this in. You don't have to if you don't want, but I just like it. Okay, so do you want to start with the cylinder or the prism? I don't care. Cylinder. Let's do it. So if we're doing the volume of half a cylinder, it's going to be 1/2. What is our B in this problem?
3.5 squared
Yeah. This right here is a diameter, right? Which is the same as this. So that means our radius is 3.5. So we're going pi times 3.5 squared. What's the height of the cylinder?
13.
That's the distance between the circles. This right here is going to be the height of the cylinder, which is 13. Same as that, right? Okay. You can leave this in terms of pi because it doesn't work out to like the worst number. We'll do it both ways. I'll show you what the in terms of pi answer would be and the rounded answer. For now, just plug in 1/2 times 3.5 squared times 13. And you get this number, 79.625 pi millimeters cubed. Now, people look at that and they go, no, you rounded. Did I round? I didn't round. That's exactly the number they gave me. It's a terminating decimal, right? So don't call it 79.6 because then you rounded, but this is the exact number, okay? Or if you want to turn it into a fraction, you can just hit that S to D button. It'll turn it into a fraction for you. So that's a cylinder. We're going to use this number. How about the prism? That's going to be the area of the base times the height. What do you want to use as your base for the prism?
The little one.
The little one, this one?
Yeah.
Okay, what are the dimensions of that small rectangle?
7 by 8.
Right, it's a 7 by 8. So the base you would do 7 times 8. Okay, that's B. What's H?
13.
The 13 again would be your height if you do that. Now, you didn't have to do that, right? You could have said 7 times 13 is your base and 8 is your height, and that's fine too. You don't have to use the same height as the cylinder because it's a prism. So 7 times 8 times 13 gives you, for the volume of the prism, 728 millimeters cubed. Okay, so if you want an exact answer, the volume of this whole figure, you would do 79.625 pi plus 728 millimeters cubed. Not the most beautiful answer. If you want to the nearest tenth or the nearest whole number, you just plug it in. 79.625 pi plus 728, and you get 978.1 millimeters cubed. Okay, so it just depends what they ask you for. I don't think I specified on this one. No, just said find the volume. So either one of those volumes is acceptable if it's not specified what to do with it. Question, sir? Jacob? No?
Oh, no, I had this one.
You got the cylinder right?
No, yeah. No, I was just saying that.
Gotcha. Questions?